Pamela Marie Densmore.
Graduation day for Pam Densmore is very special. Family and friends can appreciate the effort it took for her to reach this day, and she can take great pride in her accomplishment. 5 years ago, all this seemed a lifetime away.
I went in for my interview and your orientation, and I didn't know anything about the university. I didn't know where any elevators were. I didn't know anything at all. And I ended up going over flight after flight after flight after flight of stairs, and all I did was walk and walk and walk. And I still carry that memory around with me to this day, being so exhausted and so tired by the time I got home that it really almost turned me off from the university. It was such an awful experience. I met a girlfriend of mine, Carolyn Nickel, and she introduced me to a person that became my best friend, Sharon Cole. And in turn, the three of us went to MOD because we had heard about the group, and the group had touched base with Carolyn. And she, in turn, introduced me to MOD. And from then on, I felt okay because you had a base to work from. MOD was my lifeline for 5 years. It was my social contact, and it was also helping me out academically and physically.
MAUD is Memorial's Organization for the Disabled. Organized first in the mid-70s, it languished after a few years, and it wasn't revived until 1982. That was the year Glenn Blundon arrived on campus. He provided the spark that set things going again, and the organization became known as MAUD 2. Glenn became the driving force behind successful campaigns to attract members, raise funds, obtain office space, and to receive ratification by the CSU as a student organization. He was to have only 2 short years before his untimely death in 1984. Such was his personality that able-bodied friends from his home area of Bay de Verde who came to Memorial at the same time joined him in the work. This started a trend that continues today, giving another dimension to the organization. Ed White of General Studies has a close association with MAUD 2.
From what I hear in other universities, that's sort of a somewhat unique kind of an approach to things. The funny thing is, the distinctions within the group disappear, essentially. You know, you're a member of MAUD.
I call them a group of friends because that's basically what we are. They don't put any membership requirement on the students that are involved. All we ask is that you give your free time when you can to help a student. But it's also not only able-bodied students helping disabled students. It works in the reverse, too.
You may be sitting in a wheelchair, but you may certainly well be able to help an able-bodied student who's having trouble with a particular course or any of the, number of things that are going on in their lives. I think it's plays a support role for all the students that are involved. Not just the disabled students.
While caring and giving can't help but result in benefits for everyone involved, MAUD 2's reason for existence has to be helping to make university life easier for the disabled. And due in great part to MAUD 2's influence, that's happening more and more each year. Rob Pitt is a lecturer in the English department.
My involvement with MAUD came because I was teaching a semester a couple of years ago a blind student. And so I got involved in MAUD in a peripheral way. I never became a member through that particular student. And because I was working then on trying to get a particular piece of equipment, a VersaPoint Brailler for them, or to find out some means of them getting it themselves, I had occasion to go along to a number of meetings with university people and with outside service organizations who help disabled students. And what I found in my limited experience was a good deal of knowledge, including technical knowledge, of disabilities and what students with particular disabilities need, as well as a very good political sense of how to get things done. that they could, in a meeting, get through very quickly the formalities and get to the heart of the matter, more than I've seen it done in meetings of other groups, other interest groups.
Through the efforts of Rob Pitt and Mod 2, blind students now have that VersaPoint Brailler at their disposal.
What you can do with a VersaPoint Brailler is take text that you've written in pretty well any word processing program and translate it through a fairly simple software package into a series of signals which, when received by the VersaPoint Brailler, will turn our ordinary ink text into the raised dots of Braille.
Dr. Elizabeth Popham of the English department was given responsibility for the Brailler, and it took a while for her to become familiar with its operation.
The major shock is usually how long the Braille document turns out to be. We've had sociology finals that turned out to be 126 pages of Braille because the standard multiple choice question ends up occupying, in fact, several inches of paper in Braille. It's in use primarily around exam time. I am a bit surprised that it isn't used more for things like course outlines, and only a couple of students have taken the opportunity to get class notes typed out by volunteers and brailled. So that perhaps because we only have a few blind students at this particular moment, it hasn't been used as much as we might have expected.
The efficiency of the aging brain may be affected by which of the following?
Jim Fiddler is a blind student who is making use of the Brailler at exam time. He reads the questions from the Braille script and has able-bodied volunteer Sandra Sands put his answers on paper. This is one area where the able-bodied members of MOD provide an invaluable service. Elizabeth McGraw is a professor in the English department. She's not blind, but she is discovering that a simple walk to the cafeteria for coffee is just a little more difficult for a sightless person. This is part of MOD 2's campaign to raise the consciousness of the faculty with respect to the disabled. Professors agree to be blindfolded for a day during the CNIB's White Cane Week.
The difficulty was that people were constantly assuming that I could see through that blindfold. That was the main thing in terms of physical hazards, you know, people bumping into you because they don't realize you can't see, people depending on eye contact that doesn't exist, depending on voice contact while giving you what are essentially visual directions. This pretending to be blind is like children playing blind man's buff. It's trivial, you know, the real thing. I don't think you can compare it to the real thing at all, except, you know, in the sense that you pick up a few signals, you know, such as the way you talk to blind people. Try not to talk to them as if they could see seems to be the main thing that I learned. Don't talk to blind people as if they had eyes. They're not there to be used.
MOD 2 also organizes Wheelchair Awareness Day each year, when faculty members are asked to put themselves in the place of mobility-impaired students. Rob Pitt was one of the volunteers.
I was involved as a disabled for the day teacher, and I found a number of things upsetting about the layout of the campus. Doors that opened the wrong way so that I'd get caught going between them, and I didn't cheat, I stayed in the chair even though I was sorely tempted to get up and help myself. Doors to the classrooms even, very difficult to open if you're holding something else like your lecture notes or your briefcase. You know, other people on campus, students, were very helpful opening doors, and most doors I wouldn't have gotten through without people helping me. But I didn't like the feeling of depending on these other students, as kind and as well-meaning as they were, and there's nothing wrong with that. It still isn't a nice feeling to be dependent and know you're dependent on the charity of others.
Of course, at the end of the day, Rob could leave the wheelchair behind. Not so with Corinne Flynn. She lives in Doyle House. It's a male residence, but one that is wheelchair accessible, and she manages quite well. This would normally be a double room, but for Corinne, one bed is removed so that she has adequate room to maneuver. Shelves that an able-bodied person could reach easily are inaccessible to Corinne, so she has special lower shelves which she can reach. There are special elevators to which the disabled alone have keys and which allow them to move easily between floors. Of course, steps and stairs which the able-bodied take for granted are replaced by ramps in strategic locations. Gail Howell is taking advantage of another university service for the mobility impaired. This specially equipped van is available to transport wheelchair students to classes, meetings, or social events anywhere on campus. Corinne Goff has vision impairment, a disability which would normally rule out a course in physics with its graphs and charts and measurements. However, innovative faculty members are finding ways to expand the options for the disabled. Glass faces on meters are removed, and the graduations are raised in a braille fashion. To make her graphs, Corinne uses pins and a tool akin to a pizza cutter. Marked with this wheel on the back, the graph paper has raised lines which she can deal with on the working surface. A simple bobber and fishing line becomes a measuring device to help find resonant peaks in an air column. When the bobber hits the water, she marks the line and then uses the raised graduations on the meter rod to get the measurement. The willingness of tutors and professors to adapt to Corinne's special needs is directly proportional to her desire to succeed. It takes determination and a positive attitude to become the first vision-impaired student in Canada to be successful in a lab-oriented university physics course. It also takes a little push.
Mod 2 was there as my support when I first started, and encouraged me and gave me the strength to be able to take on some of the challenges, and they pushed me. You know, even when you get low, and you know you're disabled, and it's not a nice word to use, but you are, and you sit down, and people look at you funny, or they say you can't do it, and this group of people just say, "Listen, you can do it," and you know they help you get there. They smooth the path, no matter if it's just getting in class or encouraging you.
On this growing campus of thousands of students, faculty, and staff, the disabled can use all the help they can get. There are a number of off-campus agencies that provide assistance. For example, the CNIB has its audio tape library services. The Coordinating Council on Deafness has programs for the hearing impaired, and the Vocational Rehabilitation section of the Provincial Social Services Department also provides assistance. But it's the Student Affairs Office that is mainly responsible for disabled students. In her position as assistant to the dean, Lillian Beresford deals with their problems on a daily basis, and she recognizes
I really
the
don't
value
think
of
so,
Mod
because
2.
being an organization, well, I mean, they're seen as an organization. So then they have their own executive president and whatnot, and we do have meetings with them, as opposed to just a single student coming in. Now, that's not saying that the single student wouldn't get helped, but I think that, yes, the Mod 2, being an organization, is seen in a light whereby they would get help a lot faster than the student just coming in requesting something on their own.
General Studies Office has a close association with the disabled as well. With Mod 2 office space severely limited, General Studies has become something of a home base, and staff members are always ready to go the extra mile. Exam time is a busy period here, when staff is involved in coordinating the examination schedule. Because the disabled sometimes find it difficult to write exams with the rest of the student body, General Studies makes office space available so that they can do the examinations at their own pace with the help of able-bodied volunteers. Mod 2 is a rallying point where friendships are developed and there is mutual support. Rick Turner doesn't need sight to help John Anderson negotiate a narrow doorway, and there was always a way for John to return the favor. Mod 2 brought them together out of their need for help.
No, back a bit more. There we go. Okay, all right. You in? There's no one here today. By the way, Rick, you know there's a message up here for you.
What does it say?
Rick, call Craig Morrissey, CNIB.
You must have returned my call. I called him yesterday. Oh, by the way, John, I got a letter. I wonder, would you mind reading it for me?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's natural that the disabled would draw upon each other's strengths, and their coming together in Mod 2 allows them to do that. But what of the able-bodied volunteers like Gord King? What's their motivation?
Okay, I became a member of MOD because I enjoyed helping people, especially not because they were disabled, just anyone in general. And I saw this as a great way. I'm studying to become a teacher, and this was going to be an asset for me to get to learn to work with people.
Why? I don't know. I like it here. The people are great. I like helping out. You know, it's a lot of fun. A lot of people don't realize that. I mean, people in a wheelchair or someone who's blind, they're people too, and it's just, you know, they're the same as everyone else. They're great people. I love it here.
I liked what the organization does. Okay, it helps disabled people adjust to university life. And I know it's hard enough for someone who's able-bodied to adjust to a university and being away from home and that. So this organization helps people to adjust, and that's a big asset to them.
I don't want to be doing anything else. This is it. This is fun. I like this.
It would be an educational thing to get to work with disabled people. Okay, there are a lot of people have a lot of ideas and beliefs, or not really beliefs, but ideas about what disabled people are like. You know, like they're hard to get. You know, it's hard to get close to them. But once you get to see past a wheelchair, or okay, with Rick, it's a seeing eye dog. Once you can stop looking at that when you meet them, then you can get to know the person.
Mod 2 people, both disabled and able-bodied, are a tightly knit group. Their contact with each other extends to social situations, where you'll find that good, comfortable feeling that exists among a group of close friends. Ed White's position as Assistant Director of General Studies brings him into contact with Mod 2 members during his workday, but he's also drawn to them on a personal level. He's able to put the organization into perspective.
Yeah, one way of looking, I think, at the situation generally and the university is the university is a community, and the disabled students, Mod 2, is a part of that community. One of the things I think that's really helped over the years is the fact that students help students. Mod is very much a self-help group, and because of that kind of involvement, they're able to do much more for each other than the university would be able to do for them singly. I think of all the partnerships that have formed between one student and another student, helping each other through the university experience has been, you know, a good demonstration of that. Disabled students generally do quite well in university with that little bit of support from each other. And I think one thing they've recognized too is and the group talks about this, is how they educate their instructors, the administration and so on to work with them. It's a very much of a two-way street. And this help back and forth, this sort of community approach to their situation has really paid off. I think Mod 2, in comparison to a lot of other universities and their programs, has proven itself as a really good model for other places to look at. And certainly we've had other universities get in touch with Mod and want to know why they're doing it in that particular way.